By virtue of who we are and what we have grown to become over time, talking about 46 years now, patriotic zeal comes second nature to us. We do not take it lightly. And part of our core responsibility is to ensure that all those around us who make up this great country, Nigeria, understand from where we have come, where we are now, and what aspirations, our goals and objectives are. Welcome, it's a weekender. We are not far from where we started this year, talking about January 2023, where the enlightenment has been continuous, it has been consistent, it has been unrelenting. Because we realize that our thoughts become actions and our actions become habits. And it's those great patriotic habits that we seek to inculcate in our neighbors, our brothers and sisters, our families, our colleagues, all the great people that make up this great country, Nigeria. Enlightenment, voter education. Today is of voting. The time is now. Just 7 days to the D-Day, the presidential elections, and we want all those who have the potent permanent voters card to come out en masse and to use it wisely with wisdom. My name is Thelma Obaz. It's great to have your company on our program. As you do know, our program is interactive. So in the course of it, we expect to hear from you, your experiences and your thoughts. It's Weekend today. It's about the ease of voting. After all the enlightenment and voter education that we have been committed to sharing with you in the past weeks, it's time to talk about how to make voting easy and perhaps to reiterate all the arrangements that have been made by INEC and others to ensure that on that day, success will be the portion of everyone who comes out with a potent permanent voter's card and intends to use it wisely. Francis sets the tone for our conversation this morning and has been speaking with a myriad of people. Some air their opinions very strongly, I believe, amongst other things. Please listen.
With just few days to the commencement of the 2023 general elections, how prepared are Nigerians to cast their votes? Traditionally, there will be restriction of movement on the election day. But some Nigerians are asking, why can't Nigerians have the ability to go about their lawful businesses and still vote?
I hope a time would come that in Nigeria you can actually vote from your phone. You don't even have to go anywhere. The thing is that looking at the way things are done today, it makes the process very cumbersome. It makes the process very expensive. It kind of has a way of making the process, move or last longer than ordinarily it should be. If technology is one, if what is obtained in other climes is not obtained here, it's probably because we haven't gotten there yet.
Elections are here, and I can understand some people's concern around restriction of movement. But we must understand that our election is still evolving. But when you look at Nigeria's peculiarity, we've been dealing with insurgency for over a decade now. And from advice from our security agencies that we must curtail the movement of people so that they can be able to cordon off if there is any security threat.
Since election is not war, then we all have a role to play. What can be done to make the voting environment more conducive for all?
The voting environment in most instances is hostile because you may have to stand under the sun. In some instances, you may have to stand under the rain. Now, when we look at things like that, would you reckon that we have canopies? In some enclaves around the Lagos area, I've seen where, but these are highbrow areas, somebody can just decide to say, all right, I'm going to donate a canopy for the event. But I can assure you that we don't expect that that could or possibly be replicated in every part of the country. So as it were, how can we make this thing better? Technology can actually make this thing better.
Another area that calls for concern as we approach the 2023 elections is, should electorate cast their votes and go home, or stay around the polling unit after casting their votes?
Democracy allows for vote and go and vote and stay. It's about choices of people. What is important is not to interfere with the electoral process. INEC has accredited independent electoral observers. And our role is to ensure that we observe this process, we document this process, and we report it to strengthen the electoral management body.
If you vote and go home, chances are peace can kind of be enshrined. But are you also sure that when you vote and you leave, certain manipulations will not take place? This is why people try as much as possible to see that they hang around, to see that the vote is counted, and to see that the coalition officers do the right thing.
Laws regulate all aspects of our lives. The electoral process is no exception. The use of political party branded t-shirts, for example, is one of the items prohibited on election day.
Once it is 12 hours to elections, we want to believe that any kind of adverts on the media should stop. But with the social media now, I'm afraid there's very little you can do about that. That is on the one hand. Now, when it comes to door-to-door canvassing for votes, is that something that you can kind of stop? You may not really be able to do that.
One thing that is prohibited is the use of mobile phone around the voting area, because we've seen cases in previous election where people would snap who they voted for just to use that as an evidence to collect either 3,000, 5,000 or 10,000 naira. So if you're caught using your mobile phone around the voting area, you will be arrested and prosecuted.
Another area of concern is how to vote on election day. Are electorates truly aware of how to vote to ensure their votes are not invalidated?
The political parties on their part have failed in this regard. Whatever the symbol of your party is, by now you should have probably replicated them in tiny bits and given it to your supporters. When you go to political rallies, that should actually be part of it. It's not to just come and stand, make lofty promises, and then you move away. No, it should not be. You should be able to tell them, okay, this is the logo of our party. When you go there, make sure your thumbprint does not go beyond the square that logo is. We have not seen much of that.
So I advise, if your thumb is really big, please use your index finger, put it in the ink and thumbprint gently. When you do, if you see it's not drying up immediately, you can take it and blow it so that it dries up. Let's say this is a ballot paper. So rather than folding it like this, it is advisable to fold it this way, and then you put it in the ballot box this way. But make sure you fold it in a way that nobody can see who you've voted for, because it's a crime for you to also show who you have voted for, because this is a secret ballot system, not an open ballot system.
Every election year, we hear this expression: the election materials did not arrive on time, thus voting started late. What can be done differently to enhance election day logistics?
Before now, they would send ad hoc staff, and then somebody would drive these materials from very far away. Now, what INEC does is every ad hoc staff sleep at the rack center, and then you collect your material and you move with your material. So like before, where manpower would move before material come, no. Now you when you see the ad hoc staff or the INEC ad hoc staff, they're there with both sensitive and non-sensitive electoral materials. And this was informed by the experience of previous elections, where logistics have hampered some of the outcome of this election, where I remember in 2015 and even 2019 elections were postponed by a couple of days or weeks.
The success of the 2023 elections depend on all and sundry. Therefore, Weekend Deal today is captioned "The Ease of Voting in Nigeria."
The ease of voting. Those Nigerians who have taken time to be a part of the continuous voter registration and have got their poll tent PVC, like we did here, it's not an ID card, not an ATM card. Is your patriotic zeal an identity, such that in a week's time we expect you to perform your civic responsibility and duty? But it's pertinent that there be ease in voting. That is why Ayuba Tete is talking about the voting procedure in the forthcoming elections. How will we make it easy, especially with the bimodal voter accreditation system? Ayuba, share, please.
As the days inch closer to the election D-Day, the voting populace, along with the officials in charge of a successful hitch-free process, prepare in earnest. The dates still remain as Saturday the 25th of February 2023 for the presidential and National Assembly elections, while Saturday the 11th of March 2023 will be for the governorship and state houses of assembly. But despite these details on the basic voting process being public knowledge, some might need constant updates as to the important procedures. Recruitment and orientation of election officials is also ongoing to ensure efficiency. Basic information from the Independent National Electoral Commission include: voting starts at 8:30 a.m. Check and be sure your name is on the register of voters in that polling unit. Once accredited, you will be issued a ballot paper. You can leave or stay 300 meters away from the voting area to witness vote sorting and counting. Present your PVC for accreditation using BVAS. Get authenticated with the BVAS through fingerprint or facial recognition. Go to the voting cubicle to make your choice in secret and drop your marked ballot paper in the ballot box. As far as the actual voting process goes, some things should be of note. For instance, how to cast your ballots. Examples of valid ballots are: any vote that is clearly cast closest to the party of choice. Examples of invalid ballots are: votes cast equally across two political parties. Unmarked ballots. More than one vote cast on the same ballot paper. When the voter can be identified. If all rules and procedures are duly adhered to, and the authorities stand their ground to be diligent in their duties and steadfast to their commitment, the upcoming elections will no doubt be the freest, fairest, and easiest yet.
It's interesting. Well, Ayuba starts from getting to the polling unit on time, and you must get accredited first. That's the beginning part. Whether you have a PVC or not and you are there, accreditation must first take place before you perform your civic duty. It is hoped that logistics will not tamper with promptness and punctuality. And that's how we get to see what Dio was doing during the week. You know, she was focused on movement restriction. We have been listening to security agents as well as INEC officials tell us that there will be movement restricted on that day. So she's looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly side of that aspect.
In Nigeria, it's just a few days to 2023 general elections, and when it is hours to the elections, the Nigerian government, as usual, would declare that there will be no movement within a time frame on the election day. Restriction of movement on election days. Why?
Restriction of movement from the security perspective is to forestall possible breakdown of law and order. When you have people moving unnecessarily on election day, when you make it look like business as usual, people may not think something as important as election is taking place, especially in developing countries, in third world countries, and countries like ours who are yet to even get there. Even in developed climes, we've seen occasional glitches that occur when you have unrestricted movement of people. But I believe with time, when we get it right, people have argued, and rightly so, that when you restrict the movement of individuals on election day, is unconstitutional. It contravenes the freedom guaranteed in the Constitution. That is the freedom of movement, freedom of association. But in our climate where people can go under the cover of freedom of movement to perpetuate, if you like, illegalities under cover of free movement.
On the election day, roads will be empty with security personnel at various junctions. The few vehicles allowed to ply the roads must be conveying election materials. INEC staff, election monitoring groups, and independent observers, plus other professionals on essential duties like journalists, medical practitioners, and so on. Many would-be voters whose polling units are far from their homes might prefer to stay at home for fear of being arrested by the security agencies. Is this scenario not contributing to voters' apathy?
INEC made it very possible for you to transfer your voter register and voter's card to the polling units nearest you, and that's why it even increased the number of polling units because of transfers. People who have changed of location. It's possible that you can transfer voters register from where you were originally domiciled, maybe because of work, change of location.
You knew election was going to hold February 25th. Whatever you are doing, you put it aside. What happened in 2019 where people who had fixed their wedding ceremony, their birthday ceremony, everything, they were supposed to be landing in Nigeria, they were supposed to be taken off out of Nigeria, suddenly, INEC postponed election, midnight, and election was just about less than 2 weeks or thereabout. It was not going to be very easy to change some of those things, particularly for airline owners who will have to fly in. Cancelling a whole day trip was not an easy task. Like you said, people who rely on daily pay. You knew election will not hold tomorrow, a year ago. You plan ahead. It's the good of the Nigerian state that we shut down. People have argued long way, let's vote. It happens everywhere. In Mali, yes, it does happen. There's movement. You see people selling everywhere, and voting is going on. In the same Mali, I saw with my bare eye a motorcycle rider with ballot papers at the let's say trunk now, with a box tied to the motorcycle. Ballot papers, results were inside that box. You can't try that in Nigeria. They will kill that man in that forest near Kail region. They will kill that man, kidnap him, kidnap the result, kidnap everything.
The restrictions also contribute to low turnout of voters and generally affect the economy. Hence, the government needs to come up with modalities and laws that will be beneficial to all.
Indeed, what is beneficial for one and all, especially those who have their permanent voters card, is in the best interest for Nigeria, because our path to progress, our path to prosperity is everyone's business. We're talking, it's about the ease of voting. Elections take off in just a week's time. Talking about the presidential elections first. Ezinwa Wago is the chairman, Partners for Electoral Reform, and board member, Yaga Africa. We welcome him on Weekend Joe.
Thank you.
It's great to have you with us.
How is the weekend treating you?
The weekend is treating me very well, and you?
Well, we're still coming out of a Emefiele.
Coming out, yes, progressively coming out.
Yes.
Good. Now we have the best, we have hope that all will be well.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Ease of voting. Let's look at the electioneering process. Where were we? Where are we? What ought to be our expectations? Elections take off in a week.
Well, everyone knows we've made incremental progress in terms of the different shifts that we have seen from especially 2007, when President Yaradua initiated the Justice Uwais Electoral Reform Commission. That's an admission that the process that brought him to power was, in his words, flawed. And what that meant was that we were coming from a place where you could be going to vote, and the result of where you're voting will be announced in the media. You are on your way to vote. And
so there was some high level of rigging back then.
We were a place where we were cutting ballot boxes, stuffing them, and then daring everyone to just go to court. By 2011, we began to see the introduction of the smart card reader and, some cleaning of the voter register, because it was seen that at that time, before that time, all manner of underage voters, foreigners, all sorts were in our voter register, and you couldn't be talking about free, fair, credible election without an authentic voter register. So we have moved from that point now, where we have now infused much more technology than we had in 2011.
So more funds were provided.
Well, of course, by 2011 you had something in the neighborhood of 73 billion. By now, you know what we're dealing with, and exponential population increase. More people have turned 18, more people are voting, urbanization, and all the things that have been thrown into the process. So we are there now where, relatively speaking, we will see less human relationship with the electoral process, especially the introduction of the beavers and the IREF. So that's where we are. We are from.
It sounds good, right?
No, it's beautiful on paper. It's beautiful on paper, but the human component, the attitudinal infusion, will bring the outcomes that we're looking for. Because machines.
Whose attitude now? The electorate
all of
or
us,
the INEC?
All of us. Like I said, election is a series of events, from the voter registration period to candidate selection process that are internal issues of the political parties, to campaigns, and then to E-Day itself, which is the one we're looking forward to now. So this series of activities, there are roles that every stakeholder has to play. So you have the security agents. Election is a law-determined process, and the Constitution, the Electoral Act, has vested on the security agents the responsibility to maintain law and order. And the Constitution says they should enforce all laws. So if the security agents play their role optimally, we're going to see good election.
Some have talked about vote and go, or vote and stay. Many are of the opinion that with beavers, your vote is secure. When you are casting it, hardly anyone says. And the machine and the honest official, patriotic official, are going to collate and upload.
The votes are not casted electronically. So you are not doing electronic voting. You are still going to vote manually.
But they say you are secure, only you in the
well, you remember that we came from somewhere. We came from where people took their phones to the polling units. When they cast, they snap, and then they show the agent where they voted. So the sanctity of the ballot was compromised, and so INEC said, do not take your phones or electric. That's where we're coming from. So there's a lot that's been done into improving the secrecy of the ballot, reconfiguring the cubicles in a way that it guarantees that. But in spite of that, if you followed the off-cycle elections, you still saw that there was still vote for money, there was still violence in a few places, and all of those things. So the idea of vote and stay is a hard-won battle. It was not a gift. Okay. If you remember, nobody gifted the people. It was a fight where the IG had made that pronouncement that once you vote, you leave, and the vote, the electoral mandate protection, component of this whole was that, look, if you vote, you give a gap and stay there until your votes are counted.
If you want to.
Yes, if you want to. And the votes are counted manually. Because there is a confusion. A lot of people think that, you just vote, they upload. There will be vote counts in the PU at the polling unit level. No, you first cast your vote.
Yes.
When you have casted your vote, the presiding officer counts the vote, and then records it in a form called Form EC8A. It is the capture of the Form EC8A that was done manually, that is
recorded manually.
That is recorded manually, that is put into the BVAS to then upload into the IREF. You get what I'm saying? And then there could be during the voting period, you don't need internet. But in the uploading of the result, you require internet. So it is possible that there is no internet at the point of the PU, and the man needs or woman needs to get to a place where there is internet and all of that. If you are a party agent, you have a responsibility to follow that process to its conclusion. If you have vested interest as a voter, you also can follow peacefully.
Yes.
And that's the understanding.
Peacefully is so key. Peacefully is key.
Yeah.
Irrespective of what happens, if we all make a commitment to peace, I think we'll be far gone with having something that will be successful and fruitful. You talked earlier about you would like a situation where INEC under promises and then over delivers. Have they been over promising?
Well, I think it's in their remit to inspire confidence, to ensure that people, have a sense of safety and all that. But I have a different responsibility. My responsibility is to put their feet on the fire and say, hey, I know where you are coming from. I heard Faith, my darling sister, talking about, the off-cycle elections. The off-cycle elections, every is comparing apple and tomatoes. The off-cycle and if you even check the graph of the off-cycle elections, it goes up and
comes
it
down.
undulates. So the national election comes with its own complexities. And those complexities, there is a different approach. So when we are in Osun, we mobilize 33,000 policemen, security agents, the police, the NSDC, everyone puts in people to secure the environment. Now, for a country as big as Nigeria, 200 plus million people, you are talking about 400,000 security agents. So you now know that your task is much more,
more daunting. Well, let's talk about logistics quickly before we wrap up. You made a comment, a phrase which is ingrained in my memory now, that in good times, logistics is a challenge. INEC has assured us a different forum. But tell us, what is your take?
You see, Professor Mahmood, and I think that his commission is one of the best commission that has, come in INEC. But I worry for him because anyone who does not understand what this Naira design means for election is just pretending. Telma, we're going to be dealing with vendors. INEC vendor relationship will be impacted negatively in spite of, and that is why this program is important at this particular time, to call attention. It's not enough to make promises. I've been in this process enough to come to that point where there is already a press statement explaining why things didn't go the way they should go, and I don't like that.
No.
I don't think we should make it a ritual.
No.
That these things that I'm saying now, that you are holding me on to say, they have assured. I've seen. I'm making a catalog of assurances.
Okay.
Let me tell you, the IG assures.
The INEC chairman assures.
The INEC chairman assures, and these assurances were there when INEC offices were being burnt. There were assurances. The NSA will warn. Everybody warns. And I've asked colleagues, I said I've looked at the Electoral Act. I've not seen any section for warning. There is no section for warning anybody. What is in the Electoral Act is consequence, sanctions. If you do this, we do this. There is no warning in between. Okay. So what I'm saying is that as we go to 2023 election, the security agencies must give us service delivery outcome that matches value for money. If that doesn't happen, nobody should explain. People should be fired if they don't deliver.
People should be held accountable.
And that is where the disconnect is.
Okay.
So don't explain to us now. We are putting out all these issues.
Your final words is then what?
See,
as we wrap up.
We are putting out all these issues in the public domain so that those who can do something will not come to this set and explain to you that, you know, the NURTW, we paid them, we signed the MOU, they reneged. That's what we have had in the past. And that shouldn't happen again.
I choose to remain optimistic, Ezenwa.
I'm more optimistic than you. That's why I came out this morning. I'm more optimistic than you.
Yes.
My work is to continue to hold them accountable and hope that they do the right thing to the betterment of all of us who want to consolidate this democracy and ensure that it stays.
And we do thank you because you've opened our eyes and minds to giving us a broader perspective of what is happening and what can also happen, perhaps if we don't take the necessary steps and measures at this time. Ezenwa Wagu, Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reform, and Board Member, IAGA Africa. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Chairman.
Nigeria thanks you. You're watching Weekend Deal. We'll go on a break. We'll be back. Don't go away. Weekend Deal. Your company is one for all and it's all for one. As we chat about the ease of voting, it's just 7 days to the presidential elections this year. And OI has been going out and about to talk about the role of the information that we sometimes garner on social media. Some say it is actually disinformation. OI, tell us more.
Social media as a communication platform is persuasive, and it offers a global coverage for politicians. In recent years, online political campaigns have become a veritable tool and a game changer in Nigeria's political terrain. It is common to find political warlords who may not have voters' cards exchanging political views, opinions, and ideology, circulating on Twitter, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, and others. Traditional media prohibits political campaigns 24 hours before the election, but political parties often migrate to the social media to violate electoral laws.
There's some sort of regulation for the social media. It may not be as active or as enforced as that of the traditional media. For instance, for now we engage the social media through the community. They have these community regulations, community enforcement rules that they follow, and there are people who they put in charge of that who interface with us. Now that campaign is gradually drawing to a close, we are not oblivious of the fact that things can just be trumped up on the social media platform. During the Osun election, I think 24 hours of the bar period to polling day, there was this very, very strong rumor on the social media that one of the major contenders, gubernatorial contenders, had withdrawn from the race. We had to depend on traditional media to diffuse that fake news. Code allows the traditional media, broadcast media, to go after the candidate or anybody who has been rumored to have withdrawn, to talk on tape to the people to confirm whether he has really withdrawn or he's still in the race. That window was created, and that helped the situation.
It is worrisome to find some social media influencers posting fake election results when INEC has the final and authentic records.
Anybody who is serious will know that you take any story you see on the social media with a pinch of salt. Even the broadcasters who depend on social media as their source of information, the code provides that they should verify, they should check the veracity of the information that they are taking. Don't just there are so many checkpoints on the same social media to see whether this is a fake news or being trumped up by some characters or there's something real to take out of it. So we may not be able to enforce the 24-hour rule on the social media, but Nigerians still depend on the traditional media for the cocoa of the matter, to use that word. Yeah. So if we see results on social media, I don't think any normal person will take that hook, line, and sinker, except you are seeing it on a verified website, maybe the INEC website, which is the authorized place to take it. And even that, we should be careful because there are a lot of cloned websites now.
There are stringent punishments for electoral law offenders in Nigeria. However, the faceless political offenders on social media seem to go unpunished during and after the elections.
Our own is to detect, to be able to find out if we can trace. We take it to either Google, if it's on YouTube, we take it to Twitter, or we take it up with TikTok people if there's a disturbing story or fake story that we think can destabilize it. And it is incumbent on them to take it down within either 6 hours, 24 hours, immediately, as the case may be. It depends on the category of offense. And if they don't take it down, the government will engage with them.
Experts advocate that we are responsible for free, fair, and credible elections. All hands should be on deck to achieve a peaceful atmosphere before, during, and after the general elections.
We told you earlier about the patriotic zeal that we have become very comfortable with. A patriot and then zeal. We want to do what is in the best interest, not just for self or even for the NTA, but for Nigeria. And every time you take a step to do something, always think, whose interest am I serving? Mine or that of a progressive Nigeria? Please, let's welcome our guest who is with us today to talk about social media, amongst other things. Abiodun Borishade is a public communications expert.
Good morning.
It's great to have you on Weekend Deal.
Thanks. Thank you.
I know you have worked closely with a past governor of Ekiti State, Governor Fayemi. And first of all, before we go to social media, can you tell us, with regard to elections, what the Ekiti experience was like? Were you there? What is your take?
We had the governorship election in Ekiti State just before the last governorship election. That's the Osun experience. The Ekiti experience was a success to INEC. The electorate, both sides, those voting and those that were voted for in Ekiti, we are just individuals. I think their performances was also credible, beyond average of what we've had in Nigeria as a whole. Like they say, every politics is local. I want to give credit to the candidates. Why I'm saying that is because their followers emulated not the directives but their body language. So the acrimony on social media wasn't that much. This is for Ekiti State.
Yes.
The acrimony wasn't that much. Toxicity wasn't
that much too.
Much either, yes.
So you say that even the losers and the winners shook hands afterwards and everybody's friends today?
Court cases came up, but there's been room for reconciliation. I know His Excellency, the new governor, has had, it's on social media when he's had opportunities to meet those who lost in the election, and the atmosphere was not toxic. There was
no tension.
No, there was handshake, there was hugs.
From that time till now,
we were small and we all know each other, so there was room for reconciliation because it wasn't a long drawn battle. There was room for reconciliation.
Interesting. Perhaps it's something everybody can look to as we go to the presidential elections in just a week.
Hopefully.
But let's go to the social media. It plays quite a prominent role, would you say, in our lives, let alone at this very critical time in our nation's history. How would you judge, our play there, our serious talk there, and how we come away after we have interacted there, even when people are not on the same side of any divide?
The most important thing, and I've heard that word being used time and time on this program, patriotism is really important. When we are patriotic as citizens, reconciliation is much, much, much easier. There would only be a winner. And if the process is seen to be transparent, social media is one of the tools that can bring about transparency. But in the Nigerian context, we still need a lot of education and advocacy. I want to compare the role of social media in this coming election. I want to liken it to preparing a meal. You know, you use lots of ingredients. One crucial ingredient for virtually any meal is the salt.
Okay.
Use too much of it or too little, you get an unsavory taste. If properly managed, then we all come out smiling after a nice meal.
Interesting.
Social media as a tool in this coming election hovers in between three factors or players. The electorate, both parts, those voting and those being voted for, the judiciary, the law enforcement agents, and of course the umpire, that's INEC.
Okay.
Now, sitting in the middle is the society. The society must have a purpose. The general purpose of us Nigerians requires patriotism.
You talked about cybercrime, security, and consequences for wrongdoing.
Yes.
How effective has that played out? Or how effectively has that played out?
Well, there are laws and there are consequences, but in between both, we're Africans. We're Africans.
What does that mean to the law?
Okay, you know, there's a saying, but there's an African proverb, I don't know if it's only Nigerian, but one person gives birth, but the society brings up the child.
Okay.
A lot of times you find, we know people who come to social media space with poisonous ideas. We know them, you know.
Okay.
But again, they seem to get away with the atrocities they commit because there are pressures, either family pressures on those that have been aggrieved to let go of the matters. Even if it was just the criminal aspect, they now pursue matters in civil courts and
So
things
in
like
most
that.
cases, there have been no punishment by law as regards cyber crimes.
I want to look at the last election at Osun State. INEC has their own positions on things that you can do during the election process. Say, for instance, taking pictures and posting pictures, or releasing results from...
It's a no-no.
It's a no-no. But there are social media handles that were releasing results. Social media handles can be traced to owners, but you know,
little or nothing.
I guess maybe what INEC didn't want was a distraction from. They probably didn't want to major in the minor. I mean, because to them, getting the election completed successfully with minimal distractions
was key
to them. Yes.
Okay.
You know, that again brings us to that point of responsibilities and freedom of speech and patriotism. And you know, what's your mission? If your mission is to have a better Nigeria, it has to start from individuals. If we look at, you know, earlier on I mentioned something about triangle. Now we've touched on the judicial aspect, the law enforcement agents. Going beyond that, the previous speaker here mentioned how technology has come to stay in our electoral processes.
With the beavers.
Yes. And I think the umpire needs to go a step further, because if you look at the trend globally, I think during the last US presidential election, one of the candidates had his social handle medias bad. I mean, it was
hacked.
It was shut down.
It was shut down.
The owners of the platforms shut him down from propagating hate speech and things like that.
So are you urging us to explore that?
No, I mean, it's not for us. It's for the umpire to decide. You know,
let me take a message here. Politicians create all the problems. They are very desperate. They capitalize on poverty and hardship and influence and induce the electorate with peanuts. This is Osholo Paul Odo Ovoko from Enugu State. Let me take another message. Nigerians should be on their guard so that INEC does not give us results that are not authentic. He didn't tell us where he is reaching us from. And let me take finally, Amolayemi from Akure. It may be challenging to come out to vote on Saturday if the transportation challenge that we are facing in Akure continues. But let us see how we can bring this now to the social media. Can you now, Nigerians are watching us, whether they are in any group or for any candidate, perhaps where INEC has left a gap, if at all there's any, you can step in with some words because you have been there and you know the best way it can be done.
This the election coming up in a week's time is going to be peaceful. The issue of transportation to polling units and all that, I don't see that as being an encumbrance. Your polling unit is oftentimes within walking distance to your abode. We all could do with some exercises. 5-10 minutes walk brings the society closer. It gives us the opportunity to talk. You know, we are in a busy lifestyle now, so to say. So that 5-10 minutes walk. Again, there was talk about INEC producing fake results.
No, they said it should be authentic because, you know, the way many people have heard it, the BVAS is going to give us 99.9 accuracy. But some of the civil society organizations have been telling us that, you know, it's not as we think, that INEC ought not to overpromise. In other words, there's still room for some things, you know. So some people are saying now that INEC has a responsibility, in spite of all that is happening, to ensure that the results they upload are authentic.
I want to say that INEC has done very well. The introduction of any new technology has its pluses and minuses. I think it's unfair for any entity or individual to want to insinuate that INEC has ever produced a wrong result or a fake result. Yes, there might be disputes, but to come out and say that INEC might give us...
we ought not to even think in that direction at this time.
The moment we start bringing that into it.
Okay. I ask you to hold your thoughts for a bit. Let's go to Ibadan, where they've been asking residents, when you cast your vote, using your potent permanent voter's card, would you like to stay back and monitor the process, or would you cast your vote and then go? Ibadan did this research. Let's see.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, was established by the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to, among other things, organize elections into various political offices. One of the contentious issues that usually generates anxiety, discussion and suspense have been whether, after exercising the civic responsibility of voting at a polling unit, should a voter go or stay to monitor the results from the unit. As the 2023 elections gather momentum, the big question is now on the lips of voters. So when you vote and go, are there benefits?
I would prefer to vote and go home. Reason is that I've done my civic responsibility and there is no reason for me to stay for anything again. In as much as my vote is already counting.
Me, I'll vote and go home. Well, basically the reason why is because maybe safety and all that. Everybody actually know the present situation of the country right now. So of course, maybe when you vote and decide to stay over, there might be riots and all that, maybe causing of troubles and many things, destroying of damage and properties. So it might even affect that person. So the best is just, as soon as you finish your voting, just go to your home straight.
You have to witness all the effects on that day. But it will be rather advisable that you vote and you go home in peace.
I will vote and go. Some thugs may be around shooting, so, and I don't have to wait.
Are there benefits if you decide to stay back after voting?
Well, most times that we've voted, we've actually stayed and made sure the votes were counted before we all disperse. And I'm sure that's still what will happen this time. Because, after voting, there's plenty of people, there are discussions going on. So it's interesting to actually stay and see that your votes are casted and they're counted right there in front of you.
For the candidates and aspirants, these are their views.
For me and to me, I would advise that the best way to go about it is to vote, stay. When you do that, you will be able to, your vote is actually your power. And by doing that, when you are there, if peradventure there's going to be any means of manipulation or whatever, you'll be there not only to see things out, but to possibly give the necessary support to the law enforcement agents who are there to make sure that elections are conducted, without any hitch.
Vote and then make sure you defend your vote so your vote can count. So not that you vote and then you leave. By the time you leave, they can manipulate it and then put it in their favors, contrary to what is supposed to be. So my take on it is just vote and then wait and defend your vote. Make sure your vote goes to the proper place.
However, with the trend of Nigerian politics, if security is guaranteed, many would want to stay. The federal government has mandated INEC to conduct free and fair elections, and INEC on its part has given Nigerians assurance that 2023 elections will be free and fair, devoid of any manipulations. So the choice of whether to go or stay after casting the ballot is the voter's choice.
Whether you vote and stay or you vote and go. Mr. Abiodun Borishade, it does seem as though the women want to quickly hurry home and then the men say they will stay. What do you attribute that to?
I don't want to say it's a cultural thing, but our mothers, sisters, wives, they have multitasking abilities. So once they perform their civic responsibility of voting, they oftentimes again have other things pending. I want to say that knowing by God's grace that the election will be peaceful is not the fear of the unknown. It's just more of a cultural thing that oftentimes want to necessitate our women going back home early enough, particularly after 4 or 5 hours at the election. People come back home hungry.
Yes,
so there must be food.
So they go back and continue their multitasking.
Yes.
The ease of voting is premised on a lot of things, but that we do hope that is the interest of every patriotic Nigerian. As we wrap up our conversation, the ease of voting nationwide is just a week to go.
The advocacy and education can be more from INEC, but again, there are constraints, budgetary constraints and all that. I, for one, there was a mock exercise they did with beavers. I think they ought to have done that weeks or
much
earlier, and a wider spread, because in reality people would rather watch videos of the process, that process of the beavers accreditation, than reading from print media. I think they ought to have gone a step further, ease of voting in mind. They ought to have visualized that process to the electorate. I want to say they missed out on the opportunity of using that tool to further educate our people.
You think they achieved little or nothing?
I won't quantify their success.
What the impact was.
But I know, as a social media enthusiast, I would have preferred to see that process in a 1-2 minute video clip which I could have equally forwarded to some friends.
Sent it nationwide,
so I think they missed that opportunity. It's not too late. Okay. There's still 5 days, 6 days.
Okay.
So on that, I think they could have achieved more. But by and large, like I said, it's going to be a peaceful election. INEC is a credible organization. I'm yet to read or see where they've done otherwise. The judicial system is also trying its best, but we need to see prosecutions. Otherwise, we don't have deterrence.
Okay.
That's and on the final leg of the triangle I mentioned, the electorate, the candidates, year in, year out, with every cycle, they're getting better and more exposed. As human beings, we're getting more sophisticated and refined. It also reflects, the society is getting better. Communication is easier.
Okay.
Reconciliation should also be easier. So I think
it shouldn't be do or die.
It shouldn't. Well, we've moved away from that. Now what we're having is people attempting to badmouth
other people,
yes,
and that should be discouraged.
Yes, absolutely.
We want to thank you, Mr. Abiodun Borishade, public communications expert. It's been enlightening learning from you this morning. And the most important message, be that patriot that will stand front and center, not just now during the elections, but every time. Because when we do it right, those who see us, those who watch us, those who hear of us, will be inspired and motivated to do it right. Not just sometimes, but all the time. Tomorrow is another date with you. Please join us. God bless Nigeria. From all of us here, it's bye-bye.